So first of all, thank you for coming out tonight. We cannot tell you how excited we are to be in Seoul to talk about Ripple and XRP. It's our first time in South Korea, so it's pretty exciting. We're doing a big tour. There's I think 7 of us: South Korea, Tokyo, Singapore, and Hong Kong. So thank you for coming out. My name is Miguel Villas. I am head of XRP markets at Ripple. I am going to be going over an overview of the company and then talking about my favorite digital asset, XRP, for a little while. So that's what we're going to be going over. This is the agenda. We'll do, like I said, a little company overview. I'll talk about the products that the company is building. I think there's sometimes a little bit of confusion around the product suite, so I'm excited to be able to run that by you guys. We'll talk about XRP in particular, and XRapid, the product that wraps XRP liquidity, and then we'll go through a quick summary. I joined the company about a year ago, and my background was not in fintech or cryptocurrencies or blockchain. I was a traditional finance guy. I was at the CME running precious metals when I got the opportunity to join Ripple. And the first reason I joined is because there are real people at Ripple. It's a real company. We have probably one of the best fintech blockchain teams in the world from a tech perspective, but we also have really seasoned management from incredibly successful companies. So when I looked at the leadership, Chris Larson in particular, who is a legend in Silicon Valley, I couldn't help but be enamored by the possibility of working with these folks. So the people's really the first reason I joined. The second reason I joined is that it's a real company. I had come from Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Mitsui, CME. I had worked in really large, pretty prominent places, and my mother asked me, where are you going to work? I showed her the website, and she was like, well, our website looks nice. But no, in all seriousness, we're almost 180 people now. We have $94 million in VC funding. Like I said, our people come from some of the most prestigious places on the planet, and we have offices all over the world, and we continue to expand. It's a solid, substantial place building solid, substantial things. So there was no fear from that end. Like I said, it's expanding, and it's an international payment software company. So it behooves us to be global in our physical presence. And Asia in particular is a really important region for us. So I think you'll continue to see us expand in the region over the next few years. We're now in all of these wonderful places, and like I said, hoping to continue to expand. So the last and final reason why I joined the company is because I felt like they were building the killer app for the perfect digital asset for payments. And the company is solely focused on one thing, and that's international payments. I think when you run into other blockchain companies or other fintech companies, it can be a little confusing because many folks are trying to do many things. And that makes it very hard to be good because you can't go deep. If you can't go deep, then you can't solve your customers' problems. When the company was founded, they had this wonderful technology in XRP and then the XRP ledger, and they could have done anything with it, really, just about. And they looked at all of these other use cases: trade finance, securities, lending, smart contracts, insurance, and figured that every single one of those use cases ends up in a payment. And more, it ends up in an international payment. And the international payment rails aren't great. There's a lot of friction, there's a lot of inefficiencies. So the company homed in on this one use case. So it was very easy as a newcomer joining the company to understand what the company did, which was not the case when I was when you look across sort of the spectrum of the space. So great people, real company, very clear use case. For me, it was an absolute layup. And this is what the company is trying to do. So, as I mentioned, payments today are not efficient. When you send money from one country, I don't know if anybody's ever sent a wire to somebody else in another country, but it is not an elegant experience. It takes days, it's opaque, you don't know how much it's going to cost you. And as you look around, the world is getting less and less willing to deal with those inefficiencies. The world is growing, economies are growing. The experience that consumers want is one of seamless integration, elegance, no failures, global, real-time, on-demand. All of these things that international payments do not give you. The rails for international payments were built based on a 1960s and 70s batch economy, one where you paid your suppliers at the end of the month in one big payment. Today, that's not the way the world works. Right? Today, Uber and Airbnb send millions of payments a day, and a place like Uber has 20% fail rates. And if a driver from Uber says, "Hey, I didn't receive my payment," Uber doesn't have a real way of chasing down the payment, so they just send it again. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right, in today's economy. And it's not going backwards, right? We're going faster and faster towards a world where payments get made more and more frequently to more and more places on the planet. So, So we have a solution for these problems, right? We have three solutions actually. So, and this is what I'm going to walk you guys through tonight. Two of these solutions, by the way, do not today interact with XRP in any way, shape, or form. So XCurrent, which is our enterprise software solution for banks, solves two very specific problems: messaging and settlement. And you really want to think of that as a better SWIFT. So the rail that today banks and financial institutions send international money through is SWIFT, it's wires. And this is the one that's really what we're trying to replace with XCurrent. XCurrent gives you bi-directional messaging and instant settlement in a way that today you can't do. So keep those in mind. I think so we're going to solve three problems, and those are the first two: messaging and settlement. The third problem we're going to solve is liquidity. And liquidity is where XRP comes in and where XRapid comes in. And we're gonna dig a little deeper into XRapid and XRP in a little while, so I'll move on. XVIA is very similar to XCurrent, except it's not meant to process payments, but meant more to send payments. It's also a hosted solution, so you don't have to, banks or payment providers or corporates, they don't have to install XVIA on premise. They can host it in the cloud, AWS or NTT. Now, today, those three solutions are not fully integrated. But the most elegant end state for our solution stack is one of full integration. So you can imagine somebody like a corporate like an Uber or an Amazon sending a payment with XVIA, funding the liquidity for that payment through XRapid, all happening underneath our governance and rule sets. So when a financial institution joins Ripple by using the software, they don't just buy software, they also join a network of rules that cover things like compliance and dispute mitigation, so that it's easy to understand sort of the rules that everybody has to abide by. And then lastly, on the other end, the bank would process the payment with XRP. This is the vision, guys. So this is what we're trying to get to, where you have smaller financial institutions sending payments, funding them through XRapid and XRP, and then being processed through XCurrent. So XCurrent is currently our flagship software. It's the one that's gotten the most adoption. It's the one that when we talk about banks using software from Ripple, this is what we're talking about. We have over 100 banks now in various stages of implementation. We have real volume going through the network, and we have And I'm sure you guys have heard of our partnership with SBI in Japan, where we have 60 plus banks using the software currently. Again, very, very important. Settlement, messaging. That's what Xcurrent solves. What it doesn't solve is for liquidity, and this is what we'll talk about XRP a little bit. So today, when a bank wants to send money from Brazil to India, it may need to use the bank accounts of a few other banks in order to get the money from Brazil to India. Those are nostro-vostro accounts. And the banks that hold those accounts are called correspondent banks. And the correspondent banking system is expensive and it's inefficient, mostly because it means that if I want to get money to India, I either have to have funds in an Indian bank account sitting there waiting for a payment to be funded, or I have to have a bank who's willing to lend me that money in order to pay it out. I can't in real time get Indian rupee from Brazil. With the banking system, the way it's structured, you can't do that today. And that's a problem. It's a problem because you have to manage the account, so operationally that's expensive. The banks where you hold the correspondent nostro-vostro accounts, they're going to charge you for that. They're going to charge you for the liquidity if they're lending it to you, and if you have funds there, they're just sitting there. So we've seen numbers as high as $27 trillion a year sit in nostro-vostro accounts and nobody uses them. So just think about that for a second. If you have $27 trillion sitting there not being used, it's an incredible amount of capital that's not getting put to work. Right? Incredibly inefficient. We think XRP can be a solution for that. So instead of that flow that I described where you're sending money from Brazil to India using the correspondent banks, what you could do is just take your Brazilian real, buy XRP, move it to India, sell the XRP in India for Indian rupee, and then pay out locally. You could do that in 30 seconds, 90 seconds. That would simplify your flow simply because now you're only bridging through one asset. But really what you'd be doing is you'd be sourcing liquidity in real time in a way that you couldn't do before. And the magic comes from the fact that XRP does a few things really, really well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So what does XRP do well? Look, truthfully, you could do this with any digital asset, right? But I mentioned that the company is 100% focused on payments, and it's been 100% focused on payments since day one. Day one, the only product the company had really was the XRP ledger and XRP. XRP is designed to be efficient, scalable, stable, and fast. So today, when you send money or you send XRP from one exchange to another, it takes 2 or 3 seconds. That's how long a transaction takes to confirm. It costs next to nothing, and you can do 1,500 transactions a second. Just those 3 attributes make it really ideal for this bridge asset use case, which we're putting forward. On top of everything else, XRP has a clear governance structure. So the idea, and it's interesting, and, you guys should, after this, when we're doing Q&A, sort of you can grill Warren about forks. Warren is our product manager. Warren, put your hand up, would you? There's Warren. Warren is the guy who takes care of the XRP ledger. But what that means is that it's a much more stable system to work with. Right? The idea of forks create a lot of problems. And if you're building an enterprise use case and you're depending on infrastructure every day, you can't have that infrastructure switching over and changing. The governance structure under XRP makes it much less likely to have forks, which is great. And I think that's easily see that with the 32 million ledgers we've closed without issue. So in short, we think that not only are digital assets great for that use case, but XRP is the perfect digital asset for that use case. On top of all that, we've built a product that takes that process that I described earlier, the purchase of XRP, the movement of XRP, and the selling of XRP, and basically distilled it down to a few API calls, and that's XRapid. XRapid is the product that solves for the liquidity friction that we discussed earlier. And it's really, really simple, but it's very, very powerful. So if you're in this example, which we just piloted this, and I'm sure some of you saw the announcement a few weeks ago about Qualix, the payment provider in the US, that used XRapid to move money from the States to Mexico. And we took their delivery time from 2 days, we took that down to 90 seconds, and we took their cost from 3% down to 40 basis points. They were so excited by this that after the first pilot payment, they were asking us when they could go into production. So it's a sea change in terms of their expectations of working with the financial system and how they source liquidity. So I'll run you through the example. It's pretty simple. They Qualix, they go ahead and deposit. So they go ahead and deposit funds at a digital asset exchange. That's the first step, which wasn't up here, but once they have the fiat sitting at the exchange, all they have to do when a payment comes through to them is connect to XRapid, basically dial up the API. What the API does, and it coordinates the next few steps, which is the first step is the purchase of Mexican peso, US dollar at the US dollar exchange. Sorry guys, just screwed that up. It's a little hot up here. Actually, you know what, I'm gonna take off my hat. The spotlight. So you don't buy fiat, you buy XRP. You buy XRP, and then you move XRP, and that's the one that takes 2 to 3 seconds to the Mexican exchange. And at the Mexican exchange, all you do is you sell your XRP for Mexican peso. Now there's an interesting thank you. Mexico was perfect for the pilot and for the first corridor, because the exchange that we were working with in Mexico has local payout to the local rail. So that means that you don't have to, Qualix didn't need a bank account in Mexico, which is really useful. And it makes that streamlining of the process much more easy. As an aside, we could have done this payment much quicker than 90 seconds. We can, again, I keep talking about that 2 to 3 seconds in the middle. We could probably get this done in about 15 seconds, but there are delays sometimes when you withdraw XRP from the first account, and then there's delays paying into the local rail. We could help with the first part, but the local rail is a dependency that we can't change. So we're kind of dependent on that last piece. But either way, it's a monumental shift in expectations in terms of what these payment providers can do. So, I had that slide up there earlier around the Internet of Value, and the goal of the company to move money the way information moves. And this chart basically, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this one around the internet, but what the internet did for communication is what the company wants to do for value and money. We want to bring down the cost of international payments as low as we can. And what that'll do is that will enable very different types of payments. It'll also enable the ability of some of these banks to bank folks that today they can't bank. It may enable things like IoT, micropayments. It'll change the landscape of finance as we know it if we can be successful. And it's audacious. What I just described is a fintech startup in San Francisco trying to change the underlying rails of an international finance system, and then competing with a correspondent banking system. These are not small things. But if we're successful, we think that the world can be significantly different and really affect change on the scale of the internet. That's all I got. So Q&A.
product manager. You can answer the technical questions. Miguel's got the market questions all locked down. So.
And actually, could I get everybody from Ripple up here just for a second, just so I can introduce everybody? We got a big team.
혹시 질문 있으시면은 영어로 해주셔도 되고 혹시 한국어로 해주실 분은 말씀해 주시면은 말씀드리겠습니다.
Alright, so on the end we have Marcos in our marketing department, joined us a few months back. Emi Yoshikawa, who runs basically all things Asia. Emi is Ripple in Asia. Madhu is product manager for data. Warren is very, very important. He is the product manager for XRP. So if you have any technical questions around XRP, that's the guy you want to talk to. And then Sagar, who just joined us in our Ripple Asia office in regulatory outreach. There's me. So this is our team.
And thank you all for coming out today and for waiting. But yeah, if you have questions, we'd love to hear them. You got the floor.
So I have two questions. My first is, let's say that I want to send money to Kenya or something and I'm in the US. So in places like that, if you wanted to exchange XRP into the local currency, that'd probably be kind of difficult since there aren't many exchanges there. So do you have any plans on how you can expand better to remote areas?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, my job at Ripple is really to grow liquidity for XRP, and that means partnering with exchanges, partnering with market makers, partnering with OTC, over-the-counter liquidity pools. The flow I described there was exchanges, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an exchange, right? And Africa is an interesting use case, and there are a few folks doing similar flows into Africa, but using bilateral over-the-counter relationships instead of exchanges. So, the product as it stands is exchange focused, but that might change as well. So I think, we have to be flexible in order to. It's interesting. Every time that you go to a new country, there are new problems because every rail is different, and we're learning that you have to go very deep into each rail and solve that rail's problems. So you have to be flexible.
So my second question is, let's say that I'm transferring from the US to India. So do you think that the price differences between countries will be an issue? Because you might have very low fees, but the amount you might need to send extra XRP to make up for the rate difference being different at the end.
Right.
Miguel, let's translate.
Oh yeah.
So the question it sounded like is, what do you do when there's rate differences, and how do you think about that? Yeah.
Or actually, your question really more is, what do you do when you go to send money and the rate changes from when you started the transaction to when you ended the transaction? Is that right?
Yeah, that too.
You want me to answer? Okay. So the nice thing about XRP is that the time that you're in between exchanges is very short. So for Bitcoin, you might be waiting for a confirmation for an hour. And these things today are very volatile. So that might mean a significantly different rate. It might be better, it might be worse, but it's probably going to be different if you have to wait that long. XRP confirms very quickly. So really, the risk that the market changes significantly will be smaller. That said, if there are changes, one of the things that we're looking at doing is guaranteeing the rates so that if there are any difference, we'll make up the difference so that at the end of the payment, the right amount gets paid out.
안녕하세요. 저 XRP 가격 변동성 좀 여쭤보고 싶은데 올해 4월 5월부터 이제 굉장한 펌핑이 있었는데 지금은 잠깐 정체되어 있는 것 같은데 뭐 여러 가지 좋은 소식이 많이 있는 걸로 알고 있습니다. 올해 연말에 에스크로 소식도 있고 이런저런 상장 소식도 있고 한데 지금 가격을 일부러 잡아둔다는 얘기도 들어가지고 그거에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시는지.
Holding the price what down?
Hello.
Could you repeat too, in English?
Hi, Mr. Bias. This is Mr. Nam. My name is Mr. Nam. And then I gave you some 10 questionnaire.
One second, he had a question.
제가 다시 한 번만 확인할게요. XRP 가격이 이제 초반 4월 달에는 굉장히 펌핑됐다가 이제 다시 지금 컨스턴트 되고 있는데 이제 메인 퀘스천은 그 가격 자체를 이제 홀딩하고 있냐라는 게 메인 퀘스천인지 다시 한번 전방은 so he wants to ask the question is that he wants to ask you about the prices, the plan for prices, the XRP prices. So there's a high prices in April this year, but the price went down, has been down for until now. And then what's your plan for XRP, the control of the XRP price?
So we do not control the price of XRP. believe me, we have a lot of XRP. We get very nervous about XRP. I get more nervous about XRP than all of you put together. I promise, okay? So we do not control the price of XRP. We're not holding it down. We don't push it up. Look, these are young markets, and every time that there's announcements or every time that we go quiet, everybody has a reaction. And I get that, right? Everybody looks at Ripple to see what we're doing because we are the ones that are pushing the use cases for XRP forward. Totally understand that. But this idea that we're doing anything in the market to control the price is silly. Okay? We do not do that. The escrow will happen by the end of the year. For security purposes, we can't give you a date. That would be silly because that would be a big bullseye on us. And we have to protect the 60 billion XRP that the company holds. Now, I think that the one thing I can say is that you have a team of people who are dedicated to making XRP useful and making XRP the best digital asset for payments in the world. And we do think that is going to eventually drive a lot of utility to XRP. In theory, that should make it more valuable. Is that going to make it more valuable every day? No. Is it going to be volatile? Yes. All of these markets will be very volatile. But in the long run, if we do our job and we make it more liquid and we make it more useful, in the end, the hypothesis is it should be more valuable. We'll see.
Thank you very much for your hosting a meetup in Korea, and very fine. It seems welcome to Mr. Miguel Bias, okay? And then I met Mark Russell before start meeting, and then I gave this report, okay? 10 questions. Are you able to answer your 10 questions?
All 10? You want to answer all 10?
Yeah, right. We need it because by investor, we are considering about future price. That's the issue where. So we are considering about, this question, especially, I know you are previous CME?
CME.
Yeah, CME employee.
Yep.
And you know well about the future trading.
Sure bet.
As you know, while the Bitcoin launches future trading
Yeah.
weeks ago, it's announced.
Right.
And then you said, Ripple Insight said, Ripple XRP will be launched in future trading in 2016. And then what's going on with that? We wonder about it.
Yeah, so I don't know which Ripple Insight article.
Ripple Insight 2016 February.
February 26th.
They are mentioning about the CME.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
I'll take a look at it. I joined the company in November of 16.
Okay, I'll let them know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'll take a look. So look, I think number one, it's great that there's a Bitcoin future. I think that's wonderful for this space. And I think everybody knows that CME is an investor in Ripple. Everybody knows that I'm from CME. So, the relationship is very, very good. They're gonna try the first big one first. They have to, right? They would be silly for them to start with anything else because Bitcoin is the most liquid digital asset in the world right now. They're not going to launch all of them until they see if Bitcoin is successful. If Bitcoin is not successful, and there is no guarantee that the Bitcoin future will be successful. If it's not, then they're not going to keep launching these. Right? So, TBD, I think patience is good. We still have a little bit of work to do on listings for XRP in the States. If you look at the CME future, it's got 4 prices, 4 good prices, 4 exchanges. We don't have 4 US dollar listings in the States right now. So I think it would be challenging for them to create the index for the future today. So let's just see how things go. But if Bitcoin is successful and we do our job, that's certainly a possibility down the road.
Okay. 제가 물어본 게요. 그 비트코인이 CME 그룹에서 비트코인을 판매 거래 시작한다고 했는데 사실 XRP가 2016년도에 리플 인사이트에 보고가 돼 있습니다. 리플 인사이트 기사에 CME가 리플에 투자한다고 나와 있어요. 지금도 기사를 보시면 나와 있는데 그걸 물어본 겁니다. CME가 비트코인을 발표했는데 왜 리플과의 그 파트너십을 아직 발표하지 않았는지 그걸 물어봤는데 이거는 자기가 다시 한번 확인을 하겠다고 합니다. And then
One second.
Yeah. Yeah.
You try to find that Ripple instance. I'm really curious. February 26th. Sure.
Yeah, let's.
I saw that like the transaction fee is like fixed to is less than 1 cent. I saw that.
1/100.
Is it like fixed price or it could be increased? Like depends on the like, price of like.
So the way we have pretty advanced. It's a dynamic fee on the XRP ledger, and it's based on the amount of load that's on the network. So if the network is very busy, then the fee will dynamically change based on how busy it is. But what it basically is designed to do is it's the actual algorithm that's written for the actual fee calculation is designed to protect the ledger. So when someone tries to spam the ledger with lots of transactions all at once, the fee will go up really high, and it'll make it very cost prohibitive for them to actually spam the ledger. And so the ledger protects itself. It's like a living, breathing thing. And there's mechanisms designed to actually reduce, bad behavior on the ledger. So typically what we see is, very low fees because people don't tend to want to waste money trying to make the ledger work improperly. So I don't think people like losing money, right? So we assume that if they're gonna continue to spam the ledger, then they're gonna lose money. They'll eventually stop, which they usually do, and it just ends up being expensive for them and annoying for everyone else. So the fee is dynamically calculated. It's not fixed at all. It can be changed. All the algorithms, all the rules in the XRP ledger can be changed. They have to be voted on by the validators in the network, so it can't be changed single-handedly by any one person. And that's kind of what makes the ledger work, is this consensus mechanism that all the validators vote to improve the state of the ledger.
Okay, I understand the dynamic fee changing with every load. I have one more question about it. But what if Ripple price is 10 times higher? Even if it dynamically changed, but the transaction fee maybe 10 times higher. That's what I guess. But so, what are you guys going to do with that? Because you guys most of your clients are banks and they might hate it. So you guys might have opinion about it.
Well, so if basically if the ledger the fees were 10 times higher, that would basically, it's 3/100ths of a penny now, so it'd be 3/10 of a penny. So you're still very, very, compared to other public ledgers where Bitcoin you could pay several dollars to get a transaction through, or Ethereum you spend $1 or 25 cents. It's still going to be we've tested the network in high transactions to see how the network responds to the fees, and the fees do not increase like they do in Bitcoin or Ethereum. Ripple is not in a position to change those fees. We can't change the fees. The fees are, like I said, they're dynamically calculated based on the load. So it is designed though to keep the fees low for regular usage, and that if anyone wants to actually try to abuse the network, then they'll be punished by having the fees increase. So.
Cool.
Okay.
Go first. Alright, cool. I'm just curious about like what initiatives or companies you guys consider as competitors in the international cross-border payment whole scheme, and like where do you think Ripple has a competitive edge over all these other projects?
So, I mentioned we're trying to do two things, right? We're trying to swap out that underlying rail, the plumbing, and that's really Swift. So we view Swift as our direct competitor for Xcurrent, right? The flagship product. And then for XRP and XRapid, I know it sounds a little crazy, but it is correspondent banks. So some of the large money center banks would be the folks that we're trying to compete with there a little bit. So it's not so much, again, many of the, when you see things like Apple Pay and Google Pay and, Facebook Messenger, that is all happening at a layer above the underlying plumbing. They're just adding features to something that's already broken. And they're working around that in really creative ways, but they're not fixing the real problem. So, it's hard when you look at the space and you look at other companies, you look at like Paxos or Oxani or Hyperledger, Fabric, R3 with Corda. They're not doing payments, right? They're doing many, 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 many things. And that's what I mentioned earlier. Sometimes you look at these initiatives. I was on a panel, and I won't name the company, but I was on a panel with the head of innovation at one of the largest companies in the world that has a blockchain project. And the lady says, we have 157 use cases for our blockchain project. 157 uses, huh? The one, we're trying to track the freshness of flowers in transatlantic shipments. What are you talking about? So I think, there's a lot of silliness, I think, right now with respect to blockchain. And no one is really sort of focused as intently on this one problem as we are. So Swift and correspondent banks.
If I could take it.
Yeah, jump in.
So to Miguel's point, like the biggest challenger in a lot of these kind of technologies is the status quo, what people are used to. Even if it's slower, even if it's a little bit more archaic from that product standpoint, it's getting people to understand that there's new technologies helping them get comfortable with that. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing. One thing that I want to mention on the XRP side, right, is I think there's often a misconception that it's crypto versus crypto versus crypto. I think right now what we're seeing is that there's really a use case for all of the different assets kind of playing out, right? So in the early days, maybe there wasn't too much of nuanced changes, but now we're seeing a evolving landscape where, maybe Bitcoin is getting more expensive or it's slowing down. But there's definitely still a very valid use case in store value. What we're focusing on, and to Miguel's point, we're not trying to do 150 different things. We're trying to do one thing. We're trying to do that the best and better than anyone can and better than it's ever been done before. So that's why all the products we have, you heard a lot of different things, and I feel for you because we've been here for a while and it can still get confusing, but at the end of the day, our vision is for settlement. Our vision is payments. And everything that we do helps to reach that vision. So when it comes to competition, it's really kind of a unique situation.
저 질문해도 될까요?
I believe he was just
one and then So I guess I have a two-part question. My first is how are you anticipating responding to things such as the Lightning Network or on what would be Ethereum, the Plasma? Because they propose to, I guess, get as many transactions as you would expect for similar fees. I guess how would you hedge against that? And then my second question, I don't know if you've heard of the project Icon in Korea. I think they have a kind of a similar idea where they're going to basically integrate and make it so that you could send value through transaction or through blockchains or over different blockchains. And I guess do you have any ideas or approaches that you're taking towards that?
So in terms of the Lightning Network, I think what the team's done, Joseph Poon and Taj and those guys, it's amazing work. We actually implemented our own version of payment channels onto the XRP ledger, and that went live at the end of March. Ironically, the price started climbing on April 1st, so I don't know if that was correlated, but it was definitely a big technological achievement because it was the first public production version of a payment of a payment channel. So that's kind of one part answer to the first part of your question. We do anticipate more features being added to make payment channels even more robust. Right now it's a unidirectional payment channel. We want to make it a bidirectional payment channel. We've started seeing more and more use cases pop up that would make that good, like in the form of netting, when you're netting XRP. So that's something that we look at a lot. I think the project, the Plasma project, is something that's really interesting. I like the decisions they're making to basically take some of the scalability out of the actual core Ethereum blockchain and kind of build it on top. But my response to that would be, you ultimately still need, even if you're going to have a, try to reduce the lanes down to like one lane, you're still going to have congestion if you're only processing 16 transactions per second. XRP Ledger can process natively 1,500 transactions per second. So we've got a pretty big head start on that. I know the team that I work on every day, we're trying to constantly improve that number. It's something we really care about. And it signals to the market that, the XRP Ledger is core for enterprise use cases and supporting payments. And that's really important. So in terms of scalability, that's something that we really focus on. And I actually just met a few of the members from the Icon team. It seems like that's a really interesting project. If I understand their product correctly, it seems like solving interoperability between blockchains and ledgers. And I know there's another project, I think Cosmos is also might be similar, might be off on that, but so we actually identified this as a problem. Our CTO wrote a white paper about a project called interledger. Interledger is a protocol for connecting blockchains, ledgers, you name it, and it's designed for payments. And that white paper was written in 2015, and the first implementation, I think, was published in the first quarter of 2016. And that's actually, that core technology is what is Xcurrent and XVIA, which Miguel spoke about earlier. Those products are actually running on the interledger protocol. Interledger's also been adopted by a lot of other different projects in the space. I think a few months ago we did a transaction over 7 different blockchains, just demonstrating the value of interoperability. Because really it's a core problem. It was a problem we faced in the banks. They said, we don't want just a single blockchain. We actually just want to talk to another bank really, really easily. And that problem, Interledger solved that problem for them. It allowed them to maintain their own private ledger. They didn't have to make any big changes to that, and they could just, adapt it using the Interledger protocol, and then that would adapt to another bank and another bank and another bank. And so when you hear, Ripple has 100 banks on this network and RippleNet, Interledger is really the core piece for that. That's interconnecting all these banks. So but I think like I said, I think the projects at Icon and Cosmos, I think it's really important. I think we should be investing as much as we possibly can into solving these problems, and whoever has the best technology, I think it's gonna be better for everyone.
Sorry, just real quick, I want to touch on something that Warren mentioned. The team that he works with is a 12 C++ programmers, probably the best C++ team in the world, and they work every day on the XRP ledger. The company has been investing in the ledger and in that team for the last 4 years, and it's the heart and soul of why XRP is really the best digital asset for payments. Right? And they constantly refining, constantly optimizing. I think in a way that no one else in the space is doing. And it's been core to the company from day one, and it'll continue to be core to the company until day 10 million.
SBI 맥스랑 SBI VC가 언제쯤 XRP를 직접 다루게 되는지와 하고요. 어느 정도 거래량에 영향을 미칠지 그거 좀 궁금합니다.
So the question that there's a two question. There's a first question is there's a SBI MAX and the SBI VC, and how and when are they gonna use the XRP? And then the second question is how much the trading volume is gonna be.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we also want to know the answers. But so basically, so SBI is launching two exchanges in Asia. SBI Virtual Currency is an exchange based in Japan, and SBI Max is an exchange based in Hong Kong. It's more meant for the global market. And they are, what we know is that they are working really, really hard to launch the exchange. And we believe those exchanges will be up and running pretty soon, maybe within maybe few or several months. We don't know yet. So, and we hope the trading volume will be a lot. And so we will try to help them as much as possible. But yeah, we SBI and Ripple are very, very have a very tight relationship, and we are strong partners. We have a joint venture in Japan, so yeah, we are really looking forward to working with them.
지금 SBI 맥스랑 SBI 지금 싱가 VC랑도 굉장히 긴밀하게 협업을 하고 있고요. 특히나 또 SBI 일본에서는 SBI 리플 아시아를 통해서 지금 XRP를 통한 송금이라든지 아까 발표하신 엑스커런트, 이거는 첨언입니다. 엑스커런트나 래피드를 이제 이용을 해가지고 정말 상용화를 하려고 지금 개발 중에 있습니다. 지금 긴밀한 지금 파트너십을 맺고 현재 진행 중이라고 합니다.
질문해도 돼요? 먼저 리플의 송금 기술은 굉장히 뛰어나다고 생각을 하는데 그 기존 스위프트 시스템이 뭐 3일이나 4일 걸리는 이유가 배치나 뭐 이렇게 중개은행을 많이 거쳐야 되는 이유도 있지만 사실 컴플라이언스 관련도 많이 있어서 혹시 아까 90초 안에 간다고 들었는데 그렇다면 송금인과 수취인에 대한 자금 세탁이나 섹션 필터링 같은 것도 90초 안에 끝나는 건지 이제 궁금하고요. 두 번째로는 그렇다면 리플의 그 엑스래피드나 엑스커렌트의 시스템 안에 각 국의 컴플라이언스 룰이 모두 담겨 있어서 그러니까 각 나라의 외국한 거래법이 그 안에서 자동으로 필터링돼서 예를 들면 뭐 어떤 나라는 5,000불 이상 한 번에 보내면 안 된다라고 했을 때 송금 금융기관이 6,000불을 보내게 되면 그 엑스 커렌트 안에 컴플라이언스를 해서 그걸 자동 체크를 해서 은행에 통보를 해주는 것인지 아니면 어쨌든 그 규제 관련 각 나라 규제 관련해서는 그러니까 리플사의 그런 대안이나 이런 게 궁금합니다. 네.
So there's two questions. The first question is about the remittance solution. I know, like he says, he knows that the remittance solution at Ripple is really brilliant, but the SWIFT system takes 3 or 4 days. But this is because there's the intermediaries corresponding banks, but also there's a compliance issue. So you said 90 seconds. It takes 90 seconds to transfer the money. But how about from the remitter and the beneficiary, from remitter to beneficiary? Do you have the AML or personal filtering system in the Ripple system? That's the first question.
Okay, sure. So in that flow, the KYC AML responsibilities don't shift over to us. They stay with the remitter and the beneficiary. So nothing from a KYC AML perspective, nothing changes in the flow. And that's the same for XRapid as it is for XCurrent. It's no different. So really from that perspective, we're not aiming to solve that problem. But if they've done their KYC AML checks, the flow can still happen as quickly as we said.
And in that sense, the XRapid and XCurrent can automatically like check the compliance, including like the different each country has a different rule about the foreign exchange. Can you do the like automatically check the compliance issue and law, the foreign exchange law?
So it's interesting. We were speaking with a regulator today about this, and when XCurrent in particular, which is really the flagship bank product, is built to be basically as seamless as possible with the way things work today, except for that messaging and the settlement piece. So again, I think we are not going to do the KYC AML checks. Those responsibilities stay on the ends. Now, what does, I think one of the nice things when you start to integrate all of these things is if you're not using 3 or 4 banks in the middle, that does naturally reduce the KYC AML checks that have to happen, because now you don't have the hops, right? So it does reduce the load on the system, but with our software doesn't do that.
Also, just on the product side, so what's really interesting about some of these payments is typically, the traditional way of processing a payment is there's a large file of, hundreds or thousands of payments. And that file is gone through each, and they have to reconcile, the payment and KYC information. Particularly in XRapid, XRapid was designed to send individual payments with an actual payload of information, and that is actually the KYC, sending beneficiary information. That's that payment information is attached to the payment, and that itself is actually quite revolutionary. Because typically compliance departments, they don't have that information. That it's like when you send a paper check, and you actually put the check in the envelope with the information from the person who sent it, and you hand that person, they can actually process that payment faster than most traditional digital payments. So actually attaching that information to each individual payment is a huge breakthrough from compliance technology. So we're going to enable, this future of compliance and regulation, reg tech, as they call, to really make the processing of information much faster.
Not to jump on the question too, but I think to explain the AML and KYC, good question, and it's something that we think a lot about. Just to make it very clear, we're not and have no intentions of planning on being the remitter, right? So we're enabling companies. We're enabling remittance companies, banks, payment providers, financial institutions with our technology. So we create these integrated APIs so that then they can put that into their own UI. So really with it, nothing changes. They're still doing their checks on the side. Like Warren mentioned, you can attach that to the payments. We're just creating a better system in between so that it can happen faster and more transparently.
전 세계 송금 시장의 10% 정도를 XRP가 대체하기까지 얼마나 걸릴 거라고 보시는지 궁금하고요. 그리고 리플에서는 XRP가 향후 몇 %까지 이제 송금 시장을 대체할 수 있을지 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
There's two questions. So 처음에 10%를 So how long is it gonna take to take over the 10% of the global remittance market? This is the first question, and the second question is how long is it gonna take? How much are you gonna take the market share in global remittance?
So I think always remember, we are not the remitter, right? And so we're not trying to send money anywhere. We're just enabling folks to do it. So I'll speak to what we think the progress will be next year. So we're on pace this year to do $1 billion worth of value through XCurrent. That does not touch XRP, okay? But through XCurrent, $1 billion. If everything goes great next year, we'd love to have $100 billion worth of value through that system. Okay? On the XRP side, the goal, and Warren can speak more to the roadmap, but is to have a production-ready product by first half of next year. We're sending live money every day, all day to that Mexico corridor, and then repeating that process over and over again. One of the reasons we're here in Asia for the next 2 weeks is to do homework about what's the next corridor. Right? Is it Philippines? Is it Korea? Is it Japan? Is it Singapore? So hard to tell when it's all going to come together. My guess is that it'll be faster than we think, and slower than we want.
Nice to meet you. My name is Priwan. As you mentioned in the escrow, I saw the news. The Ripple will place 60 billions of XRP in escrow. So I would like to know what does escrow mean for a Ripple strategy direction and XRP price trend?
So I don't know what it means for the price, and you will never get me to talk about price. Just so you know that, right? I can't talk about the price of XRP. So that's the first thing. But in terms of what it means for the strategy, look, we're the largest holder of XRP in the world. People pay attention to what we do. So the escrow was an exercise in transparency and responsibility. One of the fears that everyone had around XRP was that we had so much, and that at any time, even though we would never do it because it would be totally against our own self-interest, but there was concern that we might dump all our XRP, right? So the escrow, and just for folks who don't know what it is, we've taken 55 billion XRP, we've locked it up for 55 months, and every month we'll unlock 1 billion XRP, and we'll use some of that XRP. We sell a little bit of XRP every day into the market. We're very public about that, right? It comes out in the quarterly report. So whatever it is we don't use every month, we'll get locked up for another 55 months. So we'll have this rolling unlocking and locking of XRP, which will be totally visible in public, and everybody will know what's happening. Our number one goal is to make sure that the markets trust us, and that the markets understand that we would never hurt the market for XRP, right? Because we would be shooting ourselves. I think the escrow was a big move towards proving that we meant what we were saying all these years.
Hello, I'm KY. It was a wonderful presentation tonight. I appreciate it. Actually, the participants, they asked already my questions. They already questioned. But one thing that in my mind that Bitcoin are leading cryptocurrencies in the market. But the hard fork will happen November 13th. So I want to hear your opinion about in terms of the marketers and developers and programmers. Your opinion, and is there any hard forking issue for Ripple?
So we don't really take a strong opinion on the things that are going on in Bitcoin, Ethereum. I like to look at it from a technology standpoint and see what the benefits are to the network, and if there's things that we can learn. Because all of the developers and the engineers all talk. Our chief cryptographer talks to Vitalik. They're always sharing information about how to improve the technologies and what they've learned. And to that extent, there is a lot of collaboration. Personally, my background actually got into Bitcoin in 2011. So unlike Miguel, I've never worked at a bank. I mostly work with programmers, on a day-to-day basis, and that's kind of my comfort zone. But what attracted me to Ripple was, Bitcoin. The governance issue in Bitcoin I found very frustrating. When you have core developers that have one agenda, you have miners that have another agenda, and then you have the users that are kind of stuck in between. It's very frustrating. So there were, changes that I think the network needed that didn't happen, and it kind of created a lot of chaos. I think it lost a lot of really talented people. And what attracted me to Ripple was, you have a very collaborative environment. Miguel spoke to, my engineering team, the core developers for the XRP protocol, and they're some of the most amazing engineers I've ever worked with. And their collaboration, they listen to users, they listen to the market. If there's issues, we tackle them, we get them fixed, we get them redeployed very quickly. We work nights, weekends, all day. These guys can attest, like Saturdays, Sundays. I've done deployments on Saturday morning. This is much more than a job. It's a life. It's like a lifestyle. So it's the collaboration and like the governance in Ripple is really kind of what attracts me. Every time I hear about a new fork going on in Bitcoin, or there's a new argument on some of the channels about certain issues, it reaffirms my decision to join Ripple, because I think we're making real progress, and where some of the other markets are just a lot of back and forth and a lot of spinning around and not really doing much. So that's pretty much all I can say. I don't really have a strong opinion on any of the forks.
네, 저 리플이 궁극적으로 하려고 하는 이제 송금과 결제에 가장 중요한 게 유동성이라고 생각하는데, 그 유동성에서는 또 두 가지가 중요하다고 생각하거든요. 이제 한 가지가 네트워크의 스케일러빌리티가 중요하다고 생각하고, 그다음에 이제 어떤 이제 송금과 이제 청산을 하는 데 있어서 지급 가능함을 나타내는 신용이 중요하다고 생각하는데, 먼저 첫 번째는 궁금한 게 스케일러빌리티의 경우에는 이제 컨센서스가 중요한데, 그 경우 이제 더블 스pen딩이나 이제 네트워크 악의적 공격을 이제 구별하기 위해서 검증 작업을 하잖아요. 이 경우에 검증에 참여하는 신뢰의 참여자가 많거나 아무튼 그런 처리력이 필요한데, 그런 검증에 참여하는 자들의 어떤 베네핏이 궁금하고요. 리플에서 채택하고 있는. 그 다음에 두 번째는 그 지급 가능함, 그러니까 뭐 피앗 머니 같은 거를 지급 가능함에 대한 신용인데, 그런 글로벌한 송금이나 결제의 그런 지급 가능함에 대한 신용을 백업해주는 그런 금융기관들의 베네핏이 무엇인지 궁금합니다.
Wait, let me guess. This is a two-part question. Okay.
He thought Ripple are doing the payments and remittance services for the ultimate goal is the payment and remittance goal, and he think to acquire the liquidity is the most important part, and then to get the liquidity, network scalability is important. The second, the clearing and the trust for clearing and settlements is important. So the first question, there's two questions. The first question is it is important to have a consensus between among the participants in the network, and then how do you? So it is important to control the double spending and the fraud, and to verify the network participant. So the question is, what is the benefits for the participant in that network, in Ripple's network? Mm-hmm. The second question is for the payment, fiat money, the trust for payment is important. So what is what is benefits for the backup, the financial institution? For the payments, the fiat money.
So for the first question, basically, so Ripple's the XRP ledger is fundamentally the consensus mechanism is much different than Bitcoin. So as I think one of the slides noted, Bitcoin uses proof of work, which is a probabilistic way of determining consensus, and XRP Ledger uses much more of like a classical consensus. It's deterministic. So typically, in Bitcoin, you basically you have to wait for confirmation, but you actually never get that 100%, 100.00% confirmation that there will be no double spend. At any point there could be a double spend on the network, which would invalidate certain transactions. With XRP Ledger, you actually do get that 100%, and that actually happens every 3 to 5 seconds. So the entire state of the ledger is updated, and what that means is basically all transactions, all account balances, all the flags on different accounts are all updated in this shared, distributed, global, public, distributed ledger technology or blockchain. And this happens every 3 to 5 seconds. And the way it works is, you have a global set of validators that are proposing transactions. You have users that are submitting transactions, and the validators propose them. And once they have a set of transactions that they feel is what we call a candidate set of transactions, and they've achieved an 80% consensus agreement that those transactions are all valid based on the rule set that's actually in the protocol, then that ledger will close. And once that ledger closes, what you get there is true settlement finality. So you don't have to worry about a double spend after that. Your transaction is final. You don't get that in Bitcoin. You don't get that in Ethereum. You actually don't get that in any proof of work system. And this is what a trade-off. It's proof of work is really good for a lot of things. It's not great for scalability. So Ripple at the very onset, chose basically you have three. You can choose two of three things when you create a blockchain technology. You can choose 2 of 3 between scalability, security, and decentralization. So where Bitcoin and Ethereum chose decentralization and security, Ripple actually chose scalability and security first. So we wanted to solve and make the network secure. Then we wanted to make it scalable. Some of the announcements we made in May about our decentralization strategy, and by the end of 2018, Ripple will be fully decentralized and more decentralized than Bitcoin. And we have a strategy to do that, and we've been working at it for about 5 years. We've been building a lot of tools, a lot of simulation frameworks, and just see exactly how the network's going to adapt when under different conditions. And we're in a really good spot, and we've hired some of the smartest minds in the space to work on this. So where Bitcoin and Ethereum are working on solving for scalability, which there isn't a clear solution for that, we've been kind of quietly working on our decentralization strategy. And we have something that's going to work, and we're going to be rolling it out in a slow rollout over the course of the next few months and into 2018. So 2018 on the technical side for Ripple is really the year for decentralization. And it's something that we've been conscious of. We've taken a lot of grief for that Ripple is centralized, and we know that, we're okay. But we're gradually increasing the decentralization of the network in a very secure way. So we want to limit the chances of any fork and make it as fork-proof as possible. And that's really it's a slow rollout, but it's going to happen, and my job depends on it.
Could you repeat the second question just to make sure I...
결국 이제 송금을 하게 되면은 리플의 레저를 사용해서 이제 그 네트워크를 사용하는 건데, 그 경우에 뭐 예를 들면은 이제 원화를 가지고 리플 네트워크를 통해서 이제 달러로 이제 송금을 하게 된다고 가정했을 때 달러에 대한 지급 보증을 해주는 결과적으로 리플을 받고 피앗머니를 내줄 수 있는 그런 금융기관들이 필요하다고 생각을 하거든요. 그리고 그런 금융기관들이 결국 리플 네트워크를 사용하는 거고, 그럴 경우에 그런 그런 금융기관들이 리플 네트워크를 사용해서 그 달러에 대한 백업을 해줬을 때 그 금융기관들이 얻을 수 있는 이점에 대해서 궁금합니다.
So for when you transfer the money, that you are using the ledger in the Ripple network, and so for example, if you transfer the Korean won and using the Ripple network to the US dollar, and then it is important for the transfer payments in this case, and then Ripple uses the financial institutions which back up for the US dollar. So what's the benefits for these financial institutions? That's the question.
Okay. So what's the benefit of bridging through something like XRP instead of the US dollar? So I think, look, important to recognize that none of what we've been talking about today revolves around replacing the financial system, or replacing the dollar, or replacing the euro. The goal from the beginning of the company was really to be additive, to be complementary, to give the system more tools so that the system can work better and not to replace the system. So for instance, we didn't talk about this too much, and I should have, for a corridor like Euro USD, you don't need XRP. It just doesn't help. Where XRP is going to be helpful is, again, something like a Brazil to India, where you have to do maybe multiple hops and use multiple banks. And that's where you see the value, right? So the idea is certainly not to replace any one of the fiat currencies on the planet, but much more to help the financial participants be able to transact business more efficiently so that they can, quite frankly, do more interesting things, right? And that second to last slide that shows the crisscrossing marginal cost and then the number of payments really speaks to the ability of these banks using our tools to do things that they didn't think were possible before. So certainly not replacing, but complementary and additive.
So we've got time for one more question, just to make sure that we can wrap up. Sure.
Yeah. Now I have two questions. The first one is that are there any Korean banks to join the Xcurrent? And the second is that do you have the specific plan to implement the use case of the XRP? For example, I bought some XRP coins and I want to transfer it to my grandmother who is living in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't know how to exchange that to the dollar. But when it comes to the realistic use case or implementation of that, for example, Amazon or Uber, that I can easily send the XRP coin to her, and then she can use that for payment.
Okay. So to your first question, we are definitely talking to Korean banks to join Xcurrent. I don't think we have any on the network yet, but another one of the reasons why we're here is to talk to some Korean banks. I think to your second question, in those flows, and again, this goes a little bit back to his question. We're not working towards a future where you pay with XRP directly, right? That would be, again, kind of replacing fiat, which is really not our goal. If you wanted to send XRP to your grandmother and she wanted to exchange it for dollars, I'd tell her to open up a Kraken account, and you would send the XRP to her Kraken account, and then she could just sell the XRP for dollars there. But the idea is not that you're going to send your mom XRP or your grandmother XRP so she can buy something on Amazon with it. That is not the long-term goal of Ripple. One more.
간단하게 질문할게요. 지금 다 알겠는데 지금 세계 무역을 거래를 갖다 달러가 지금 하고 있는데 앞으로 그런 얘기가 있더라고요. 리플에서 그걸 갖다가 그 달러 대신에 그 리플로 대체하겠다라는 계획이 정말 있는지, 또 그런 계획이 있다면 언제쯤 그런 게 실행이 될지 그게 궁금합니다.
If you remaining the three districts, and there's a saying that you're replacing the dollar to replacing dollar for the transferring money? And do you have the plan for that? If you have the plan for that, when will it take place?
No, so I just spent the last two questions saying we're not replacing the dollar, and that's not the goal. The goal is to make it easier to send money across the planet, and to have XRP be that bridge currency. So no dollar replacements. Please do not get me in trouble with the federal government. I think that's it, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out. We'll be around for just a little bit longer. Unfortunately, we need to be out of here by 9. So feel free to grab some drinks and to hang out for a bit. And thanks again for coming out.